a mistake because now they're wedged between the army and the zealots. This is doing far more damage, and here comes the Colossus.
Oh, yeah.
No thermal lance, but just beautifully timed. I think Whiterun planned this all along, and that Colossus came out when it needed to.
And very, very nice deflection by Whiterun. And now, see, Jinro's got to run. He's got to turn away his rallied units. They didn't get there in time, and he's behind on tech. So I give props to Whiterun. He really knows what direction to take his tech path in order to deal with what the Terran's doing, or the possibility of what the Terran could do.
Timings as well. He had like a couple minutes later, and I think those Marines and Marauders really would have pushed past Whiterun's defense because he didn't have anything that couldn't be kited, really, And after this,
he would have had at least one Colossus at that point. And again, like, he did have as sentries, and as you stated before, like, he has that energy. He can cut off, he can delay, he can
and
basically, sentry micro for the win. Yeah, if you're Protoss and you don't use sentries, then you're doing it wrong, my friend.
Also, I think that was a huge mistake on Liquid Jinro's part. I mean, those first two force fields from Duckload Ra were like a, hey, whoa, man, like, back up because I've got stuff for you.
Yeah.
And Jinro had a chance to run because it didn't really cut off his army, but instead he pushed through. And I think that's exactly what Whiterun wanted. He closed that gap with one more force field and just ate up the army with zealots.
It really looks like he's going to do that one build that you really hate, where you just get a lot of Marauders and Vikings and Medvacs, and it's just so easy to annihilate the Protoss. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if he threw some Ghosts in here too. I know, Ghosts are so good. They're so good.
Very much so. The type combination, the Marauders take a lot of damage, and they deal a lot of damage to any armored unit in the Protoss arsenal. And even though it looks like Duckload Ra is going heavy zealots, he can really use the speed that he gets from Stim to kite those zealots away. However, that is a little bit different now because of the patch, and the charge lots do get one free shot.
Yeah, it's really about positioning with your charge lots. You need to make sure that all of those cast their charge almost instantaneously, so you can deal that. It's almost like splash damage, right? Just because
just to the front lines.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Marauders' purpose is really just to dangle the Protoss army long enough for the Vikings to get pot shots off the Colossus. Now, if you do pay attention, there are drops at the top and bottom from Liquid Jinro going in opposite directions, trying to do damage in two different places at once. But if you look, Duckload Ra has Stalkers and a Colossus at both those locations.
Yes, very, very nice play by Whiterun. You'll see most Protoss players will actually just like keep their army in a big ball at the front. I really got to give it to Whiterun, splitting up his army like this. It's
denying
risky.
The top drop completely.
Yeah. Bottom drop is
the bottom drop's just
gonna get cleaned up pretty easy.
Liquid Jinro does micro that, and he gets away with his medevac with 1 health.
Oh, 10 health.
10 health, sorry.
Look, there's another medevac right there on that like outpost station. They should just get into that one.
I don't see it.
No, it's a little like doodad on like the far right side of the map, right where that medevac escaped from.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, these things here. That's funny. I was looking for an actual medevac. Now, if you look, Whiterun is taking his 4th base. Jinro does have his 3rd, so that isn't completely ahead. But where is Jinro going to take his 4th? I think really this map does encourage a race to your 4th, because it really becomes difficult to take yours when your opponent has taken theirs.
If you'll look at Jinro's production here, he's got Ghosts coming out now.
He does.
So yeah, he's going for that really very potent mix of units. And I don't know if
look at the Viking count from Liquid Jinro. And those Marauders are really going to eat up the Stalker count.
He does have Charge finishing up, and Weapons 2, and Armor 2.
Yeah, Whiterun, one thing, he sits in his base, he defends himself solidly, he knows when the right time to push out is, and he just stockpiles the right units, keeping an eye on his opponent, and all the meanwhile chronoing out those grades. If you look at Liquid Jinro, he's got grades of 1-0.
And if you look at his army now, he's starting to really consolidate everything into one solid ball in order to deal with this big threat.
Look at this, both players are maxed.
Yeah, and as I look at it now, I definitely think Whiterun has enough to deal with this. So long as he gets his zealots in the right spot. If there's zealots are out front, come on, zealots out front.
Oh, EMP from Liquid Jinro, very nice EMP. But he backed up long enough to give Whiterun the time to get his zealots in front.
Yeah.
How do you engage Whiterun when he didn't?
I think, Jinro is just taking way too much damage running away there.
And because of the upgrades on the Colossus, it's taking the Vikings way too long to kill them.
Yeah.
And
look at that. The Zealots just own face on the ground. Stalkers clean up the Vikings. Colossi come in to reinforce. And like if you look at the health on them, like they've taken a beating. But man, are they dealing damage.
Liquid Jinro, GG's. And I don't know if you saw it, but there was a bit of a miss micro with those Vikings. He did not keep them up with his army. He left them behind, and the Stalkers cleaned them up. I think if he kept them on top of his army, he could have finished off those Colossus. Also, once that was done, he could have landed them for a little bit of support fire against those Stalkers. However, the upgrades for Whiterun were just beastly.
Absolutely. And Whiterun's fourth had just finished up. I think he was in a commanding position all game. Like I said, I really don't like this style of Marine Marauder Ghost Viking. And this is a perfect example of how you're supposed to play against that. You know, he kept an eye on the front door the entire time, made sure no push was coming. When a push did come, he shut it down really easily, teched in the exact right direction. He really knew his timings too, because Charge was just finishing up, and Weapons 2 and Armor 2 in that first initial engagement. But yeah, very impressive play by Whiterun.
Just very solid from, and I have to say, Liquid Jinro played well, but he just didn't have the right tech, and he fell behind in upgrades. Other than that, it was a GG, like Liquid Jinro says right here, and this is game 1 in the series of Liquid Jinro versus Whiterun. Remember, this is a best of 3, so though it is very punishing, Liquid Jinro does have a chance to come back 2-1. So we'll see how this goes. I'm SSN Incarnum. This is StarCraft Inc. Here with me is SSN Smashcab. Please come back for game 2.
You better be there.